Hey guys, welcome back to Anfield South. I'd just like to first off start the video by thanking everybody for showing so much support on the first video that we did. It got over 100 views in just about 24 hours there, which I wasn't expecting, so a huge thank you to everyone that watched that and supported. So Liverpool played Milan yesterday in a friendly. It ended 2-4 to Milan. Now I do think that there's a lot of stuff going on online that I don't particularly agree with when it comes to this game, but I sat down, watched the game, took some notes, and I just want to essentially go through that with you guys and let you know my thoughts. So essentially the game ends 4-2 to Milan. I believe that in the first half Liverpool had sort of a lot of possession. They were creating chances, but it was missing that final touch, it was missing that final pass, and ultimately Milan scored first in about the 10th minute through Rafael Leao. It was a great counter-attack, and that will be a theme going forwards in this game. But you know, I liked elements of what I saw, and I need to see a real lineup out there to get the full scope. So let me just go into what I thought of the first half. So the first 10 minutes, Liverpool looked dominant. We made a couple of errors, which led to chances for the likes of sort of Leao. And we didn't see a lot of works on the ball in the first 10 minutes. Gravenberch and Verge were playing centre-back, which is, alluding to my point, it needs to see a proper lineup out there. But Gravenberch playing centre-back, I didn't hate it. Obviously, he's much better in the midfield, but I do believe he gave sort of an extra option there when it came to sort of passing. He frustrated Leao at times because he would turn, go past him. You see Leao sort of push him in the back a couple of times there. In terms of the first goal, I think Verge did give Leao a bit too much space there, but again, it's a friendly. If he goes in there, bundles into a tackle and ends up injuring him, it's not a great look considering we're just trying to tune up for the season. Now, after that first goal, it was important to see how Liverpool responded. As I said, we left way too much space on that counter there, but we sort of responded pretty well. We instantly were back on the front foot, which was a big theme in the first half. Lots of possession, lots of sort of passing around, trying to unlock the defence of Milan there. We sort of created a half chance. There was a flick over the top, and sort of Salah and Szoboszlai, they had a slight miscommunication there, which sort of shows to me that there's still this bedding in process for this team. Wirtz then had a lovely 1-2. He started growing into the game after the first goal. He had sort of a lovely 1-2 out wide. He gets it back. He had a great ball into Salah, who really should have shot, but he tried to give it back to Wirtz, and ultimately I believe that was the wrong decision there. So from an attacking point of view, we looked dynamic. There were multiple points of attack which we didn't really have last season. It was sort of go through Salah and see how it goes. There's a potential for a bundles of goals in this team. You can see that we had no striker, so there was no real focal point, but we were very versatile and fluid because of that. As I said, Wirtz was growing into the game, and I'll go more into individual players sort of afterwards, but when it came to our first goal, it was great. So Rio had a couple of step overs and he forced a save. And then I believe it was after that he then goes at Tomori, and this kid, again, I'll go more into detail about him in a bit. This kid is special. He really went at Tomori. He got a bit of a lucky deflection where it came back to him. He then pops it into Szoboszlai, who nestled the top corner. But he's going to be one for the future, and it's going to be great to see. So essentially the first half ends, and it ends 1-1. As I said, Liverpool, I believe we were dominant in that first half. We controlled possession, we created chances, we were lacking sort of defensive solidity, but we need to see our starting back four before we can judge that, and that's what I'm not agreeing with online, people saying we're going to have defensive frailties. Our first half back four, I believe, was Stevenson on the right, who looks like a brilliant young player, by the way. You then had Gravenberch, Virgil van Dijk and Robertson, which isn't a first choice back four. Moving into the second half, we had Connor Bradley, Konate, Tsimikas at centre back, and Kerkez. So when people are saying about the defensive frailties there, I can't judge that yet, because Kerkez and Tsimikas are never going to play on the pitch together. But Milan looked good in spells. They really did capitalise off of our mistakes, but we can only assume that less mistakes will happen in this team as they sort of get to know each other and gel. Leao looked frustrated at times. You know, the silkiness of Neoni and Gravenberch, they really linked up well in that first half. You know, he sort of pushed them after getting beaten, fouling them there. And we looked to be playing at a speed above Milan, but we were vulnerable to counters, which, again, that's a theme throughout this game. I think it should improve more with actual defenders on the pitch, but Milan did look dangerous on the counter, and ultimately it led to them having more clear-cut chances and shots in that first half. So now moving on to some of the players. So obviously we came out of a different side in the second half. So Harvey Elliott, I just sort of think it's a make or break season for him. I think he's a brilliant player. He shows us why he can be an asset in this game. We didn't have a striker, but him and Wirtz sort of were swapping round and, you know, linking up between each other. He looked great in tight spaces, and there were a couple times where he sort of dropped deep to support, and he gave outlet passes to sort of Salah and the midfield there as well. We'll move on to Gravenberch next. He sort of had that incredible ball over to Rio when he sort of played with Tomori. He was oozing confidence and then played it back to Szoboszlai with a composed finish. Gravenberch looks defensively improved, in my opinion. He looked like he was holding his own at the back. He didn't look out of place, which is sort of the biggest compliment I can give him there. He played a lot deeper, and he was creating space for players like Wirtz and Szoboszlai to have that room to operate in the midfield. And he did ultimately add a bit of sort of sharpness there to the team as well. When we were struggling to get out, he was the one to really do that. So yeah, as I said, defensively improved. He still provides that silk, and he had a great shot in the second half as well, but again, we'll go into the second half in a second. So next I'm going to go to Szoboszlai. He was one of the standout performers in that first half. He played great. He was still offering that same work rate that we saw a lot from him last year, but it looks like his technical ability is proved. I don't know if that's because he's playing around players where he can link up with a little bit better. Maybe the two tandem 10s there were sort of allowing him to shine, really. But that was something he was criticised for last year. And he's starting to look a little bit more composed. I believe that maybe Wirtz coming in could have essentially driven him a little bit. He doesn't want to lose out on his spot, and obviously Wirtz comes in for a record fee, so he's probably trying to prove that he should still be in the team. Now going on to Florian Wirtz, he looked relaxed. He looked composed. He plays his own pace. These are some things that I was just sort of taking from the game. He's definitely still bedding in. There were a lot of times where we probably should have played through him or to him, and we didn't. But as he plays with the team, these things are going to change. You know, he didn't get the ball as much as I would have liked, but he did create when he did. So he had a couple of times where, for example, he slid it through to Harvey Elliott. And he just wasn't quite quick enough to get there. Now, I would assume that if that is an Ekatike or possibly an Isak, they get there, they get a shot off. Obviously, he had the one where he slides through to Salah as well, and it's just little things like this are great to see because it just shows that he is ready for this jump. Now, Trainioni, he was brilliant, and he was one that I wanted to mention because I don't think that he played the same role in this game that he maybe did in our game against Preston, for example. In Preston, he was a lot deeper. In this game, he played a lot more advanced, and I thought that he was good. He had some great link-up play with Gakpo in the second half, but he didn't quite pull the trigger. But it was nice to see him playing more advanced. You can tell that he's got that sort of dynamism to his game, where if you need him to put a shift in as sort of a traditional midfielder, he can. But if you want him to put a shift in as a midfielder that can play a bit further up and create those chances, again, he showed that he could do that, and he was slotting in balls here and there, and he really looks, to me, he gives me a lot of Ryan Gravenberch vibes. They sort of move similarly, they're similarly built, but whereas Gravenberch has obviously got that refined element to his game, I feel like Trainioni's still sort of trying to find his place within this team, but I definitely think that he has a place. So I just wanted to make sure that I, mentioned him, because I think that out of the people that I'm mentioning, he deserves to be mentioned alongside them. Now to go to the main man of the day. I know I said Szoboszlai was definitely a standout performer there, but Rio Ngamoa, this kid is special. He's 16 years of age. He was blowing away defenders. He was creating chances. He got the assist for the goal. He has great pace. He's lacking that strength, but that will come with age. I mean, he's 16, he's still developing, but on top of that, he doesn't really need to weight train at this point. Let him develop, let him grow into his body, and from there, that's when we can then see, is he going to get stronger? Now, he really gave Tomori problems down that left-hand side. It was amazing to see him just grab the ball and run at him. This is something that Lucho used to do when he first came into the club. He'd get the ball and he'd just go at people. And sometimes his feet were too quick for his head. With Rio, it just seems so natural. He goes at you, he hits a couple step overs, he bursts with pace next to you. Like, he's wriggling through tight spaces, he's left foot, he's right foot, and all of a sudden, when you've got someone with that dynamism on that side, it looked like a lot of the players were trying to feed him. Gravenberch playing balls over the top to him, Wirtz finding him outside, you've got Szoboszlai sliding him in because he wants to see him do something, and he's the sort of player that when he gets the ball, you just take a step back and appreciate, because you know that whatever's going to come next is going to be special. He needs minutes in the first team this season. People are saying don't rush him in. Lucho's just agreed to go to Bayern Munich. If we don't bring in another winger, which I personally don't think we will, Gakpo's the number 1 option. I want to see Rio as the number 2 option, because he's showing that he's ready for this jump, and he will only get better with that experience and that playing time. So I believe that he's ready, and I would love to see him continue to play. So moving on into the second half, it's clear that the game was for fitness. We brought on players, and we're just sort of playing them anywhere. We had Tsimikas and Kerkez playing together, and as I've said, I can't imagine they'd be playing together in any other situation. We got caught on the counter-attack pretty early. I don't believe it's a sign of things to come, as I've said, but you never know. Loftus-Cheek sort of got a lucky bounce back to him, but the finish was so composed. So we then get caught on the counter again. And I know that I keep saying I don't think this is a trend, and I'm really hoping it's not. But this was a really great finish from Okafor. Mamardashvili had absolutely no chance whatsoever. So I think that Slot has a lot of thinking to do. But seeing he just ultimately didn't seem phased by it. Which sort of gives me confidence that it's more the selection that he put out there. We had 3 fullbacks, so defensively we weren't exactly going to be the best, were we? I was seeing great things from an attacking point of view in the second half though, but we just didn't have that final touch. It was highlighted for me when Gakpo made a switch to Frimpong, who took a great touch and he sort of hits it off the bar. I believe it was after a save, it might have been a deflection, but I didn't get to watch it back. I'm just going based off of what I saw initially. So the first half back 4, like I said, was Stevenson, Gravenberch, Robbo, and in the second half we went to another back 4 that is just never going to play together. So that's why I'm not worrying about the defence currently. If we were to have our main back 4, then I don't think it would happen. We pulled the game back to 3-2. Konate gave a great pass to Gakpo, who heads it away coolly. Other than that, the second half, there wasn't a lot to note. So I'm going to go into the players that really shone for me in the second half. So you've got Kerkez. He played very direct. He was non-stop. He was marauding forwards. He looks strong. He's compact. He holds the ball well. He takes care of it. And essentially, I saw great things out of him. I think he's going to be a phenomenal player for us. I had the pleasure of seeing him play live. My partner's dad's a Bournemouth fan, and we went and watched Bournemouth away quite a bit this year. So it was great to go and see that. He was exceptional at times. I was there for that deep cross that he put in, and everyone was just sort of stunned in the stadium. So I haven't really got any worries about Kerkez gelling with his team. Frimpong, now this is a player that I really want to talk about, because there's been a lot of question marks about him, and he was very sharp. He seems twitchy. I don't know if you know what I mean by that, but he's very sort of stop go. He was always ready to do something. He could be a real weapon. He was determined, and he was working his way out of tight space as well. He played further forwards, and he was linking up with Conor Bradley very well. That side could be exciting, because maybe it's a glimpse of what's to come for AFCON there. He was running at players, creating chances. Just like when he gets to the byline, he sort of crossed it, but ultimately ended up with Tyler Morton shooting over the bar. I've already spoken about him touching it down from Gakpo and having that shot. He looks like he could be a real threat for us. I don't know where he's going to play. I think that he could play right back. I think that he could play right wing, and I think it just depends on the game and the situation. I do think that he should start over Bradley. He's just been doing it longer, but I want to see them battle out for that position. Ultimately, I want them both to be given a chance, and whoever wins that wins that. So overall, my thoughts on this game is it didn't really mean much, and I'm just going to touch on this quickly because I know I haven't spoken about it. The game ended 4-2. Tsimikas gave Mamardashvili an awful pass. It wasn't Mamardashvili's fault. This is not Onana 2.0. This is not Bob Sanchez at Chelsea. It was an awful pass from Tsimikas, and ultimately he's a goalkeeper without a lot of speed. So he got beaten to the ball and it was tapped in. Again, these things will be ironed out. So overall, I found the game a good game. Like I said, there were a lot of things to take away from it, and as always, I want to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments below. So if you've got any ideas, if you watched the game, if you disagree with what I say, I'd love to hear it and have a little battle out with you in the comments. So get down there and tell me what you thought, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.